Hey everyone, it's Joe Glines. This is week 11 of what I automated this week. I'm going to start off not getting into the code, but describing one of the cool things we added to this web scraping project I had. And so I was scraping data on Lexis Nexis doing queries, and here are two examples of the queries. It doesn't really matter, but and actually the first thing I wanted to point out was in Sight. This is the nice thing I like about Sight is I have other languages installed, and I can come in here. So notice there's no IntelliSense, no color coding, and so because it's just plain text and it doesn't know what kind of to apply to it, and often I'll use like the ini and property files. Oh no, that doesn't look good. Let's try SQL. Yeah, it's not terrible. Or maybe what did I try? Let's see what AutoHotkey looks like. Yeah, that's not terrible either, but it helps you read your code. I think VBA did. There we go. That might even be probably the most accentuating for me. Anyway, so the problem was, like, we were going over every county in the United States, and some counties, of course, have greatly, like Los Angeles County has over 10 million people in it, and there are other counties that have like a couple hundred people in it. And so this time span, the client wanted to go back to January 2016 all the way through, so this would have been 2016, and through the beginning of this year to now or whatever. So it was a 3-year span, right? And so for the small counties, you could actually pull it one query. The problem was when the results would return, there would be, if it's over 3,000, it stops the query and doesn't tell you how many there are. And then when you get it down to 3,000 or below, it'll say, hey, there's 1,800 or there's 2,000 or 2,500, but it's still, you can only export the first 1,000, right? So then you still have to adjust the query. And because of the size difference in the counties, that means you had to adapt the time range different for each query for each county. And also the actual, it's not a normal distribution of data. So the data fluctuations of how many are filed each day go up and down significantly. So it was really problematic. Anyway, what Maestrith and I did was we wrote a script to say, start off going for the full time range and try it. And if it comes back and says there's over 3,000 records, cut the time frame in half. Right, and then if it does it again, cut it in half again until we get down to below 3,000, and then we take that number. Let's say it's 3,000. It's right on 3,000. Then, generally speaking, you'd probably want maybe around a third of the time, right? Because we can get 1,000. There's 3,000. Okay, so then it would take the time. It would calculate the number of days we were searching and drop it down to about a third. And actually, we backed it off a little bit more than that. But we made this relationship where the closer it was, if it was at 1,010, it would slightly reduce the number, right? Because then we would have to go for that many more queries, right? So the goal, of course, is to get as close to like 850, 900 every time, because if you get too close to 1,000 because the data is going like this, then often you're over. So we wanted to be close, but not really close. So anyway, we made this algorithm that basically backed it off a certain amount. And then when it got that number, so let's say the poll got 890, then it would say, oh, on the next query, we'll do the same county, nudge it up just a tiny bit, and hopefully it gets it. And then let's say that next turn was 1,100. And so, okay, we'll back it back down. And let's say that was, because of the data doing like this, it was like 300, right? Well, because we look at that 300, we go, oh, you know what? Now maybe we're past this big burst of data, let's jump back up a bit higher, right? So anyway, it was a complicated overall script to write on just that part of it, but it's kind of like a learning, AI type thing, close enough where it's adjusting based on the data and doing its best job to process it. So that was one of the things I did. In that, by the way, so let's see here. I ran into a page where it was the text was visible. It wasn't visible, but it was present. And so I had to work through that. And so I updated my AutoHotkey syntax writer. I documented it in another video, so if you're interested in that. But basically, I was looking for something. I'd say, oh, wait for this thing to exist, and when it exists, click the download button. Well, the problem was the thing actually existed before it was visible. And so I was trying to click download before it was visible and the thing was breaking. So I actually, let me demonstrate let me launch my syntax writer. and there's videos on this if you haven't seen this tool. But so in here, I restructured it a little bit. I used to have, because I had to wait for something to exist in here, but now I put them on their own thing. And so this can be wait for the element to first exist. This can be you wait for the specific number. So if it's an array, you can see what count it is. And then this is what I added. And of course, you got to put in your ID here or changes to tag name and whatnot. By tag name or class name. And so it waits for it to exist. And once it exists, it looks to see the items width and height. And if they're both 0, then it'll keep sleeping over and over until it doesn't equal 0. And that's basically how you can, an easy way to detect if it's visible. So that was fun to work through. And I think a lot of people often run into this and don't realize that's what's going on. Because they'll say, well, I checked and it exists, but the script still is breaking. And that's what mine was that it actually did exist, but it wasn't visible. The other one I wanted to demonstrate was I added a hotkey, big whoop-de-doo, right? But OBS was interesting. OBS requires, if you just launch it straight away, like if I just did this, it would break. It would try to launch it, but it would come back and call up some errors. And so you had to include the working directory as well as the path. And even though the document, it's pretty clear what you do, but honestly, the fact that this has spaces in the names, in the path, that threw me, because I thought, hey, when there's spaces, in the name of a path for a file, I was supposed to wrap it in quotes and wrap this part in quotes or throw the whole thing in quotes on, quotes on both ends, but nothing in between. Anyway, so this is how you write them when you need to include the path directory, and even if there's spaces, don't worry about it. AutoHotkey somehow takes care of it. So now I can just hit a hotkey and launch OBS, because I obviously use it a lot. I'm using it right now. The find text, let me, so I documented that as well, but I added into my version, let me hit a hotkey, of course, to launch that. I documented it in a video, and oh, that's funny. My hotkey is going to the older version. So, but I can, I'll first edit it. So in Studio, I can right click and say open folder, right? Which is really cool because it navigates to the folder it's in. And then now I'm going to drag in my version, and let me exit out of that version. And I need to change the path to my hotkey to launch my version instead of the one I was using. So is this the right version? Yes, it is. I'm going to launch it. And you'll notice I should have taken a screen capture before. You'll notice now I have a specify area. So let's say I was going to do this and I wanted to click up here somewhere. Great. I'll click grayscale. Fine. Okay. I can test it. It's going to find it in 562 milliseconds. And then it moves my mouse up there. But if I wanted to specify the area before, it took some time for me to go and get those coordinates. But now I added a button here so I can say specify area and just go like this. And now instead of searching all three of my big, I don't know how big my screens are, 22 inches. Now on my clipboard, I can put right in here and replace these coordinates with those. And now when I test it, it's down to 63 milliseconds instead of 562, right? So it shaved off an amazing amount of time. So if you're actually trying to find something that you're waiting for it to be there, but it's always going to be in the same location. Right now, it's super easy to update your script to reflect to only search in that area, which will really speed it up. And this find text feature function, I really use it a lot. I mean, in web scraping, I love using the DOM and COM for navigating and for doing stuff. But sometimes it's just faster and easier to say, you know what, look for this thing, and when it's there, click it, right? Put it in a little loop, searching for it, and click it. Super easy. So again, that has its own video. I documented that. I also, and then one of the other videos I did, but I'm just going to talk about, was the Amazon. So I was going through all my, getting ready for my taxes, even though I'm getting kind of late. And I had over, after I saved them all, I think I had around 110 invoices from Amazon alone, besides other ones that I had to download. And then I would go to the Amazon page and click the, open a new window, and then I would click, I think it was like print preview, and then save it, and then have to hit the save button. And so I used mostly that find text feature, as well as I send a close, but it really streamlined that process to where the second I right clicked on the open a new window, the find text was looking for the thing that said basically, I forget what it said, but it was something like open for printing, or I forget what it was, something about printing or saving, and it was great because I would just right click and then I was basically done, and then it would close the window and I could go on to the next one. And of course the problem is I didn't want all I shop a lot on Amazon, so I had 38 pages, and each page probably had 10 items on it at least, and so you can imagine how many, there were a lot of things that weren't work related. So anyway, so that was a fun one, and it was simple. It took me a couple minutes to write, and then I'm sure I saved time, but it was more about saving the annoyance of having to click all the buttons. Okay, so this one, actually, the studio split screens, I documented that as well in a video. I'm actually going to demonstrate one here because I should have mentioned something else. And I'm going to actually, on my website, I'm going to add a tab for Studio and start documenting some Studio features, because I think it's a great program, and it's a lot of people they play with it, but there's not a lot explaining all the features it has, and I only know a fraction of them, and yet I still know a lot of them, right? It's pretty amazing. But in the video I documented how to split screens and put it beneath it, but what I also could have done was split control, and I'm going to put one to the right, and I'm going to add another scintilla control. Oops. And so that opened the same script on the right, but it doesn't, and this is the other thing I didn't mention in the other video, I should have, is I can open, actually, let me see, if I'm here, then I can click, there we go. So I can have two different scripts open, right? Not just one script. In the video I documented, I was opening the same script twice, and I was messing with menus, up high and then way down low, and it was a lot easier. It's like using a split screen in Word or Excel. But the other really cool feature is you can have, more than one script open and have them side by side. And of course I could split this again and have another one, right? So it's a really cool feature that I don't think many people realize you can do. And then just simply remove the control when you're done, right? Super easy. The last one is just, I'm going to mention it if you haven't seen it. There's Maastricht had shown me some better ways to parse text using stir split and in string, and how easy it is to start from the right basically and come your way back based on what you're looking for. Like I was looking for, let's say I wanted to parse on the last comma in a row, and I wanted to get the stuff to the right and the stuff to the left. The video documents it, but it's a cool thing. I didn't realize how simple it was, because I never thought through how in string works in conjunction with stir split, using the two in conjunction. It's pretty cool and super easy. So that's it. That's the main stuff I automated this week. Check out those other videos if you want. I also have a lot of videos on the find text functionality overall, and it's a cool tool. And hope you guys are having fun and keep automating. Cheers.